Hey everyone, I'm Eric. Today, we're jumping into a book that's basically an owner's manual for your brain. It's A Mind for Numbers by Barbara Oakley, and we're going to break down the science of learning how to learn so you can really master any subject you want. Yep, even the ones you think you can't.
So let me just start with a quick question. Have you ever had that feeling deep down that you were just bad at something? Like no matter how much you tried, your brain just wasn't wired for it?
For me, that subject was always physics. I'm serious. Every time a teacher put up some complex diagram, my brain would just feel like a tangled mess of wires. They'd be explaining, and I'd just be sitting there completely lost. I was absolutely convinced, 100%, that I just wasn't a science and math person.
Well, the author of this book, Barbara Oakley, is pretty much here to tell us that idea is completely wrong. You see, she grew up hating math and science. She was all about languages, even became a Russian translator for the US Army. But then, at 26, she had this realization that her comfort zone was holding her back. So she decided to do something that sounds kind of crazy. She decided to retrain her brain and go study engineering. And today, she's a professor of engineering. Her whole journey is proof that it's not about talent, it's all about having the right method.
And that's really our goal for this explainer, to bust this myth that you're just bad at something. Learning is a skill, and like any other skill, you can totally get good at it. So let's open up this owner's manual for our brains. So here's what we'll cover. First, we'll get into your brain's 2 hidden thinking modes. Think of it like its basic operating system. Then, we'll talk about how to install new knowledge so that it actually sticks around. After that, we'll look at how to take down the 2 biggest enemies of learning, procrastination and forgetting. And finally, we'll put it all together into a brand new manual for your brain. You ready? Let's dive in.
All right, first up, your brain's basic operating system. It turns out you've got 2 very different ways of thinking, and knowing how to flip between them is really the foundation for learning anything effectively. So, these are the focused and diffused modes. Your focused mode is like a super tight, powerful flashlight beam. It's what you use when you're concentrating really hard on something familiar, like solving a math problem you already know the steps for. The diffused mode, though, is the complete opposite. It's more like a wide-angle lamp, kind of spreading light everywhere. It's more relaxed, less about the details, but it sees the big picture. This is your brain's daydreaming state. The one you're in when your best ideas seem to just appear out of nowhere. And what's so cool about this is how that aha moment happens. You've been there, right? Stuck on a problem all day, you can't figure it out, and then bam, the solution just pops into your head while you're in the shower or out for a walk. That's your diffuse mode, working in the background, connecting ideas in ways you wouldn't expect. The famous artist Salvador Dali actually used to do this on purpose. He'd doze off in a chair, holding a key, and right as he fell asleep, the key would drop, wake him up, and he'd grab all those creative ideas from that hazy in-between state. Pretty cool.
So the key here is to learn how to switch between these modes intentionally. It's a simple process. First, focus intently on whatever you're learning for a set amount of time, say 25 minutes. Then, when you hit a wall or start feeling frustrated, and this is important, you stop. Seriously, just get up and walk away. Go do something relaxing that activates your diffuse mode, like taking a walk or listening to music. When you come back to the task later, you'll often find you see it with a completely fresh pair of eyes. It's a rhythm. Focus, then relax. Focus, then relax.
Okay, so we've got the hang of our brain's operating modes. Now let's talk about the software. How do we actually install knowledge so it stays there for good? The key concept for this is something called chunking.
Chunking is basically taking a bunch of scattered pieces of information and weaving them together into one single, smooth, easy-to-grab mental unit. A perfect example is learning to drive a car. Think about the very first time you got behind the wheel. It's totally overwhelming, isn't it? Your brain is trying to juggle all these separate actions all at once. Every single step requires your full, focused attention. It's just exhausting because none of it is connected yet.
But then, after a few months of practice, what happens? All of those individual steps just merge. They become one single, automatic mental chunk that we call driving. Suddenly, you can do it while listening to a podcast or talking to a friend because the whole process is now a single unit in your brain. That frees up all that mental energy. And that right there, that's the power of a really well-formed chunk.
So, how do we build these super useful chunks? It's basically a 3-step process. First, focus. You have to give the information your undivided attention. No multitasking, no distractions. Second, understand. You gotta grasp the basic idea, the why behind it. That's what connects all the little pieces together. And third, and this is probably the most important one,
practice and recall. Don't just reread your notes over and over. That's passive. You have to close the book, look away, and actually try to explain the concept out loud to yourself. That act of actively recalling information is what really forges those strong neural pathways.
All right, so we have the rhythm for learning and the method for building knowledge, but there are these two major enemies that are always trying to sabotage us: procrastination and forgetting. Let's talk about the tools we can use to fight back. First up, procrastination. And the book has a real game-changing insight on this. Procrastination isn't some moral failing or a character flaw. It's actually a neurological response. When you even think about a task you don't like, the pain centers in your brain literally light up. And to make that feeling of pain stop, your brain just naturally shifts your attention to something more pleasant, like, scrolling endlessly on your phone.
So how do you trick your brain into doing the hard thing? You use the Pomodoro technique. It's brilliant. Instead of focusing on the big, painful outcome, like I have to finish this giant report, you just focus on a simple, painless process. I'm just going to work for 25 minutes. Anyone can do 25 minutes, right? So you set a timer, work without distractions, and then you reward yourself with a short break. It's this simple little trick that just lowers the mental barrier to getting started, which, let's be honest, is usually the hardest part.
Okay, now for enemy number 2, forgetting. And the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve shows us exactly what we're up against. It's pretty brutal. It shows that if we don't actively review new information, we forget most of it, like the vast majority, within just 24 hours. All that hard work, just gone.
The antidote to this is something called spaced repetition. The idea is so simple but so powerful. You just review information at increasing intervals right before you're about to forget it. So you might review something on day 1, then again on day 3, then maybe a week later, then a month after that. Each time you do this, you're sending a signal to your brain that says, hey, this stuff is actually important, and that strengthens the memory, moving it into long-term storage. Just think about how much more efficient this is than cramming for hours the night before an exam, only to forget everything a week later.
So, we've gone over the operating system, the software, and the maintenance tools. Let's just wrap this all up and put together our brain's new upgraded manual. If you remember just 3 things, make it these. First, master your 2 modes. Get into that rhythm of switching between intense focus and relaxed, diffuse thinking. Second, build with chunks. Create those solid blocks of knowledge using focus, understanding, and most importantly, active recall. And third, use your tools. Beat procrastination with the Pomodoro technique and beat forgetting with spaced repetition. The most powerful idea in this whole book is that learning isn't some talent you're born with. It's a skill, and just like any other skill, you can totally master it. So my question to you is, now that you have the manual, what are you going to learn next? Hey, if this was helpful for you, hitting that like and subscribe button really helps us out, and definitely let us know in the comments what book we should break down next. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Eric, and I'll see you in the next one.